Hello, everyone. Welcome to our fourth mission in our Cherbourg campaign. In our last mission, Ben cleared out Montberg, and now he is headed on over, according to the arrow, to Valones, and he's about to start that mission. And here he is going to be attempting to clear out the German forces in the town, which will clear the way to our final mission in Cherbourg.
So here we have the town, which we will deal with first. I gain an additional 2 hero points, which I have already attributed to my squad. I was looking around at the units available for purchase, and I decided to refit the squad a little bit. I really wanted this 4th level armor here, which gets us this supply ability of +1 hit, meaning if I pay a supply, I can just automatically inflict 1 hit on a hostile. Very helpful to have when you're just one health away from success. And then I was also looking at some attachments to use, since attachments can be sold throughout the campaign. So I took the artillery's small supply depot and armor company, worth 9, and sold them for 2 different attachments worth 9. I have the P-47 Thunderbolt Shorties, which let me twice at any time during the mission send out a Thunderbolt strike against any hostile, a guaranteed 1 wound and a potential 2 wound, and it's great for dealing with high cover targets. And then there's also an engineering company attached to my artillery, which will help us in the open roads for sure, where we will regain to. Speaking of regaining, at the beginning of the mission closing in, the special note is I get to regain 2 hit points of lost health. So I think I'm going to heal 1 from my infantry and 1 from my armor. So leaving my mechanized and infantry still a little vulnerable, but a little less so. So that's the 2 special notes for the beginning of this mission. And now I think we're ready to jump into the hedgerow maze on our way to the clear them out objective. So I'm going to pay an action and draw in 4 XP of hostiles.
One thing that Ben will be taking into account with the hedgerow maze is you'll see the note on the card that by paying an XP, he can massively reduce the entrance cost. So killing a unit or 2 early on, grabbing an experience point really quickly is a major tactical consideration for him.
Yeah, I really like the note since it shows that the more experienced my troops are, like the easier they can navigate the maze and get around it. Okay, to start off, I'm gonna shoot with my artillery, just at some of the low cover, the easy to hit hostiles, this dug in infantry. I'm gonna pay my supply, which I am running low on supplies, running in from the last mission, both low on supplies and some wounds, lots of holdovers. So that's going to be a Vol, and then they're going to try and use their defense on a 4+, which they succeed in. So they've spent 1 of their 2 supplies activating that ability, which blocked my artillery shot from having any effect on them. Okay, so that's my first guys. I could activate either of these attachments, which I will actually, since there is the bridge defenders in the hedgerow maze. So I can activate my engineering company to interact with their special note here. First time having an engineering company act. So I got a 5, so that is 1 engineering point to these guys. And if I'm able to get 2 engineering points on these bridge defenders, then it'll lower the entrance cost of this location and it will make me attack better. So because I've taken the bridge from them and I'm able to flank around them. Okay, but that is my first step done. On to my regular activation. I'll have my armor try and take out their armor. And 8-2. That's just a 1 wound. Pretty close to 2, though. And then again, I get up to 4 penetration, but not quite the 5 I need. Just inflicting a pin on them. So now I get to activate one of their units. And I think I'm going to activate this light armor. And they are attacking my low cover armor. But they only have 1 action, and it's a reduced. Let's see, a 3. That's going to make them retreat. So they retreat back 1 location and regain 1. So they are now all in the hedgerow maze. I'll scoot this over a little, and this hit comes off. But that is their action. My tank is shot twice. Okay. So that does complicate things, since I was hoping to have my tank kill their tank and then use that XP to move other guys in. But I can still do some of that because I have a gain XP action card. So I get 2 to play with. And I will pay 1 for my mechanized to freely walk into the hedgerow maze. That brings the entrance cost down to 1, and they can freely move in. Okay, then I'm going to do 2 attacks, hopefully taking out this dug-in infantry. So 1 attack, a 3-4, that is a pin. Thank you. And an 8-4, that is a wound. Okay, now they're going to first try and shrug off the first pin that I inflicted for their defense on a 4+, and that is a fail. So both the pin and the wound stick to them. Okay, now I'm going to activate their 1 XP guy. They're trying to hit my mechanized on a 7+, but they're unable to overcome cover and a flat miss. So they've acted. Now I'm going to do an artillery launch on this dug-in infantry, paying a supply. All right, 9-4. That is plenty. That is a hit to them. They have no more supplies to defend themselves with, so they are discarded, and I gain 1 XP. So now they've all acted, so now I am free to activate my units, the rest of my units, with none of them responding. So I'm going to have my infantry go in. I'm going to pay an XP to drop the entrance cost by 4. Discard 1 action card to get me in. Now my infantry is up with these guys. I'm gonna try.
And did you, excuse me for a sec, did
Yeah,
you
it's
make
okay.
your engineering roll against the infantry bridge defenders?
I did. I have this little shuffle here showing I have
Oh, okay.
1 of the 2 obstacles completed, and next turn, we'll see if I can get that bonus.
Okay,
And
good. Okay, sorry.
oh, good. And I'm actually going to target the armor with my infantry because I want the chance to get that bonus next turn, and I wouldn't get that bonus if I gunned them down right now. So let's start attacking this armor. Okay, so a 3-7, that's nothing. No good roll there. Try again. There we go. 5-7. That is plenty. This pin brings it up to a 9-6. And that is enough to hit, since I just needed an 8-5. So that is 1 wound to the armor, thanks to that pin there, adding 2 to my D10 roll. And then I'm going to try and attack one more time with my free infantry attack, and I'm going to play an accurate fire along with it, with an XP. So now my odds are a little higher. An 8, that is enough, and that 4 is also enough, with that pin at least. So I gain 2 XP. Action cards, always handy to have. And then that is all of my units except for a mechanized action I forgot to use. So I will shoot that at the infantry bridge defenders. And that's just a pin to them. Okay. End of the turn. Down from 11 to 10. Woof. I was planning on taking a turn after killing this guy to just refresh and get my supplies back, but it seems like that's not really going to be an option in this mission because of all of how tight the turns are. I also forgot to remove 2 supplies for activating the hedgerow maze. I'll take that from my armor. Okay. So yeah, done with turn 11, on turn 10. So this turn, hopefully my artillery can soften them up a bit, and the engineering company can do their thing. I'll start with the engineering company. Ooh, a 1. That is not enough to put a point of engineering onto them. So I don't think I'll be able to get this bonus because I'm probably going to want to kill them this turn. But let's see what happens. So I'm going to attack once. First, spending an action to gain a supply, and then an action spending the supply. And this pin brings my 4 up to a 6, which is exactly what I need to hit. So I inflict 1 hit on the infantry bridge defenders. Okay, then with my normal activation, I'm going to have my mechanized infantry go, since they hit pretty well. A 2-10, that is a pin, not quite enough to penetrate. Yeah, keep on attacking. That 5-7 is enough, another wound, and then the final attack, a 3-4. Well, let's see, that 3, we add 4 to because of the 2 pins. That brings the 3 up to a 7. And then the 4 for defeat cover is brought up to a 6. So that is enough to hit and defeat cover. Putting another wound on the bridge defenders, ending my mechanized turn, and then these guys get to go. They're targeting my mechanized with their 1 action. On a 9, they do a wound. And that is not enough to hit. They miss, so they remove 1 of their pins. But their defeat cover of a 3 does hit because they add 2 to their pen rolls right here based on their attack. So their 3 turns into a 5, which beats my cover of 4. So they put a pin on me. Okay, now I'm going to activate my infantry, firing at the bridge defenders. Ooh, that is a clean miss. I'm going to attack one more time. That is enough to put a pin on them at least. Hopefully my armor can finish them off. I'm going to play a whole bunch of action cards. I got 3 that I can play here. I'm going to play a Soak It Up for myself, meaning I get to remove a hit. I get to regen 1. I can play a Supply Dump, paying 2 XP, getting myself 3 supplies. I'll just leave those on my infantry. And then I get 2 XP as well for a gain XP action card. And now with my hand mostly empty, I'm going to spend my last action to do a discard and draw for hopefully some more helpful action cards. Okay. Now the armor gets to go. I'm going to try and move them up. I'm going to pay an action and a supply and an XP. So that way they can move in. The action pays the action cost, the XP pays the entrance cost, and the supply for their supply to move effect. And then I'm going to do 1 attack at a +4/+2, so that 3 gets turned into a 7, which is enough for 1 wound, killing the bridge defenders, gaining me 1 XP. Okay. So that ends turn 10, on to turn 9. And I get to decide whether I want to push into the highway right away or stay here for a second and regenerate some. I think I need to kind of hang tight for at least 1 turn since my artillery's out of everything. And yeah, some of my guys are vulnerable. So for my artillery, I'm going to gain 2 supplies. My infantry is going to gain 2 supplies as well, since they can hold up to 5 because of their quartermaster skill. My armor is going to regain some, up to 2. And then my mechanized is just going to pull 1 pin off itself. Okay. So that's turn 9 on turn 8. And I'm going to activate the next location. Alright, so 7 XP of Hostels, definitely scarier than the last location. So let's see what we draw. Okay. Oh, this will be fun. So we have a spooky mechanized here, showing up in the highway, and then just beyond the highway, in the plains, we have an artillery company and a infantry force kind of guarding the artillery. So that'll be interesting. It'll make my artillery battle more difficult because these infantry will get in the way. Oops. I activated that with my first guy. Okay, so highway now activated, supply point paid for the -1 supply node up there. But after this, with the plain and the open road and the clear them out, I'll be gaining 5 supplies for the rest of the mission. So I got over this early supply hump, and now it should be smooth sailing. So I'm going to pay an action to try and knock out some of their artillery's capability. A 6/9, that is a wound and a pin. But because of the infantry force, they get a defense value of a 5+. Okay, so they're going to spend their supply on a defense roll, and they got their defense of a 5, so they shake off the wound. Okay, so that's my first activation. Now their firsts get to go. They are actually both first. So I'm gonna have this mechanized go first. Yeah. They are gonna pay their 1 supply for an extra attack range. Oh, thank you. And they are targeting my highest MP guy, which would be my armor, thank goodness. They're not too great at penetrating, so this shouldn't go too well for them. Yep, a 1, nowhere near enough to penetrate, and a 6 would have been a hit, which means they inflict a pin against my armor. And then they go again. Okay, so 8-4, a little scarier. That actually, with that pin, brings the 4 up to a 5, and then they add 2 to their penetration rolls base. So that 4 goes up to a 7, which is what they need. And then that pin adds 2. So that brings their 8 up to a 9, inflicting 2 wounds on my armor. Okay. So now my fast guy gets to go again. My artillery is already activated, but I think I'm going to activate my shorty using one of its 2 charges to attack the artillery company in the back here. So I'm rolling and adding 2 to the roll. That gets me up to 2 wounds. It's because I hit 2 wounds on a 7. I automatically penetrate since they're so low. They've already used their defense, so they are brought to their lower stat block, only doing 1 action of attacks against the fewest pin unit, which would be my infantry. That is a 4 or less. Anything 5 or less is a retreat for them. And the 5 penetration is enough to put a pin on my infantry. So they put a pin on my infantry and run away to the open roads while healing. But at the very least, they are out of range. So next turn, they'll have to move up 1 in order to attack me. Okay. Now, on to regular activation. Put the acted counters out. I'm going to move my armor up. And another important thing I have to do right now is I need to play a soak it up for my armor here, so that way I can get the second action back, because right now he is in his lower stat block. So I'm going to pay an XP, regen 1, pulling him back up to at least full actions. So my armor has moved into the highway, gotten his regain, and now he's going to attack their mechanized. And on a 5-6, that is a pin against the mechanized. Okay. Next up, I'm going to have my mechanized go. He can cruise right into the highway because of the low entrance cost, and he's going to do 2 attacks versus the mechanized. Enough to defeat cover, and thanks to the tank's pin, that is a wound. And then they're going to go one more time. A 3 up to a 5, not quite enough to hit, so just a pin for the penetration. Now the infantry gets to go. He's going to move up as well. He's going to discard 2 cards to do that. Probably these 2. And then I'm going to play a flank attack to make this attack a little more impactful. So that 5 with 2 pins is enough to get me up to hit. Why do 1 more wound? So next turn, it'll elite the... Oh, it only has 2 health. I thought it had 4. Well, that is a dead mechanized regiment then. And I gain 4 XP. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Up to a total of 5 XP. And I will do a discard and draw for my final infantry action. Getting me 6 cards. And then that'll be the end of turn 8 on to turn 7. Oop, my mistake. I forgot my artillery battalion, which I can now use because I'm 2 ranges away. So I'm going to pay a supply and roll against their artillery. A 5 is enough to hit. So I do a wound versus this artillery, bringing them up to 2 wounds total. And then next turn, I just need to get a single hit with my first artillery. And then they will be dead. But there's going to be some problems with that, because I need to move my infantry up from all the way from closing in to can't shoot all the way out to open roads. So I'm going to activate my artillery, pay an XP to navigate him through the hedge maze, and move him into the hedgerow maze. Also getting him a supply since he's still out of range. But this guy is going to activate. He only has 1 action, so he's going to spend his action moving up. Not too big of a problem. That will leave my tank open to shoot. I can't move into the plains because I haven't activated it yet. So let's hope that the tank gets him. Unfortunately, the tank rolled a 4, which is brought up to a 6 because of the pin, but dropped back down to a 4 because he's shooting from range. So that is just a pin on the artillery. Another important thing is this mission under the hostile supply note down here. The hostiles get 3 supplies at the end of the turn. Now, this doesn't matter some of the time because, hostiles die before the end of the turn, so they don't really get to reuse their abilities. But in this case, the infantry gains a supply at the end of last turn, which they will immediately spend on this tank attack to try and remove the pin. And on a 3, they fail their defense roll of a 5. So the pin stays on them, and I get to attack again. Okay, and a 3, also not quite enough, since I add 4 but subtract 2, bringing me to 5, 1 short of what I need. And so that basically ends it for the ranged attacks. Minus the artillery. That'll probably work. So I'll finish that out. So the artillery activates for 1 supply, doing 1 wound to the artillery company, getting me 2 XP, and another XP because of the attachment. So a total of 3, bringing me up to 7. It is currently turn 7 right here. And finishing out the turn, just filling up supplies, getting 2 for my infantry, and unfortunately my mechanized can't really do much. All right. There we go. That's the end of turn 7. On to turn 6. Okay. I am going to I think activate the plane right now. In order to keep moving. Yeah, I'll get 2 supplies for doing this. So I'm going to activate with the artillery, paying an action and an XP. But I gain 2 supplies from this, so I'm going to give 1 to the artillery and 1 to the infantry. And then that pulls in 6 XP of hostiles. So let's see what we get. Okay, looks like we got 2 different armors, both 3 XP.
Oh, for one or so of those supplies, do you want to put any on the armor? Because I'm thinking he's going to need some supplies to move and shoot and that kind of thing.
That is true. Okay, so I can put, instead of putting 1 with the infantry, since he's pretty full anyway, I'll have 2 on the armor. So that way we can also use the +1 hit ability as well. Okay, so this armor is placed in the objective and will slowly start rolling towards us. This armor is actually flanking my artillery, which is really bad. But I should be able to get someone in to help with that. There's no one in range for my artillery to shoot, funnily enough. So I will actually leave the staggering armor alone and run away from him. Heroically, of course. And pay my 2 entrance costs to do so. I'll play these 2. And then, still during the fast step, I think I'm going to try and activate this fighting position for my artillery. Here, I'll put the fighting position right here so you guys can read it. I'm going to activate my engineering company to do so, hoping for a high roll. There we go. Put 1 shovel to know it's activated. So now I get to pick any army I would like, and they gain +1 to their attack and +1 to their cover for as long as they stay here. So I'm going to set my artillery up in a fighting position right here in the highway. Okay. So that's the first activation. Now on to normal. This tank here can shoot from range, so I'm a little worried about that. But you know what? My tank can also shoot from range. Actually, I think I'm going to artillery him with my battalion here, because I want to save my tank for when he moves in, hopefully. Or, no, that would only be if he retreats. We'll see what happens, though. I'm going to activate my artillery, paid my supply. I do not penetrate, but I do put a pin, and then he goes. So with 1 action, he's shooting at my armor, and if he, well, he rolled a 6 for his defeat cover, and an 8 for his roll, inflicting 1 wound on my armor. I'm going to play a fallback card for my armor. So I'm going to pay 1 XP, and he's going to nimbly dodge the attack by moving into the location with the staggering armor. So he is going to fall back into the hedgerow maze. And now it's about time for my... So that not only moves him into the hedgerow maze, but it also cancels the wound that he was going to put on me. Okay, and now let's see what my armor can do at close range, and with 1 pin on the staggering armor. Oh, wow. So yeah, that 6 gets boosted up to a 9, and the 9 goes up to an 11. So that'd be 2 wounds, a very dead staggering armor. 1, 2. And now for the second action, I'm going to move my 774th up one into the highway again. Paying a supply to move. Okay. And an important note with the supply to move thing is it only counts if I am paying an action to move. Any like forced moves, you don't need to pay a supply for. Okay. This location is activated. And now I'm going to charge forward with my infantry and my mechanized. I'm going to discard 2 action cards to pay for it, move into the plane, and then do a discard and draw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Always important to keep the action cards topped up. And also, there's nothing for him to really do until the armor makes his way forward. That should be fine. Okay, and then I'm also going to move my mechanized forward. So now the last armor goes. He has a last counter on him, so that's why he's going at the very end here. So he moves up with one of his actions, and then with his second action, because he got in range of my guys, he will make 1 attack against the... he's targeting low RP armor, but because there is no armor, I get to pick which one he'll attack, and I'll have him attack my infantry. So a 7-6, that is enough to do 1 wound. I'm going to pay a supply for my infantry to try and cancel it. So on a 7, ooh, not quite. So they inflict 1 wound on my infantry. Okay. That ends turn 6, on to turn 5. I'm going to activate my first guy first, of course. And yeah, he's in range of the armor at this point. So I'm going to be doing a little barrage, and I'm adding 2 to my rolls, 1 for the fighting position action card that I played last turn, which carries over onto this turn. Since it only is removed from my artillery when my artillery moves from the highway into the plains. So yeah, let's see what these attacks can do. I'm gonna spend both my actions and 2 supplies for 2 attacks versus the deploying armor. That unfortunately is a clean miss, as I do not penetrate or hit. For the second attack, that is a pin. Since that is a hit. Okay. I think I'm going to hang on to my Thunderbolt until the objective. At least that's the goal. Let's get all my actions back. Okay, now I need my tank to move up. And then I'm gonna have him try and shoot from range against their armor. So a 6 is enough to penetrate, but that 3 isn't enough to hit. So another pin. Slowly but surely stacking up. Kind of slowly but surely stacking up. This staggering armor has a defense ability, so it's going to start spending its 2 supplies trying to shake off the 2 vulns that I just put on him. So he shakes off that first one, and the second one as well. But now he is out of supplies for the rest of the round. Not that it'll matter too much, as my none of my other 2 guys can attack him this round. So now I'm kind of left in a tricky position because my choices are to have these 3 units retreat into the highway, which would pull the deploying armor into the plains, and then I could rush forward and attack him. Or I activate the open roads now, so that way I could push forward my mechanized and infantry, taking on the deploying armor. Both are pretty rough options. One takes a whole bunch of time, the other spawns in more hostiles. I think I have to go with the activating the open roads, so that way I can get in there. So I'm going to be paying 3 XP to activate the open roads, pulling in 7 XP hostiles. So let's see what we get. Okay, that's one guy. Okay. So we have a huge armor battalion, 5 XP. He shows up in the open roads as well. And then we have an artillery battalion. Who is first? And since it's past the first step, this artillery battalion, I don't think gets to go. So his turn is skipped. But the next guy I activate after their turn, this armor will go. So I'm going to move my infantry up first, discarding 2 action cards. And I'm going to... Not a whole lot my infantry can do here against these 2 armors. But hopefully they'll be able to put some pins on the deploying. That's not enough. That is really close. If I needed an 8 to hit. Okay. So then this armor regiment goes, and it's targeting my armor. So this 77th. So I'm going to pay a supply to from my infantry to try and redirect the attack. So the first attack against my infantry, that 7-3 is a 1 wound versus my infantry. And then I will redirect again to them. A 7-5 is 1 more wound. Okay. So that's them activated. Now my mechanized can charge in, and they're going to be targeting this deploying armor that hasn't gone yet. Okay, a 1-3. That is not enough to hit. A 5-7 is enough to put a pin. And then one last attack. There we go. A 6-10 is 1 wound versus this armor. And then it activates with its lower stat block, attacking my armor. It only has 1 action. That 3 is bumped up to a 5, but that still is a miss. So it takes a pin off of itself, and then its defeat cover of a 6 does land, so I put a pin on my 774th armor. Okay, that's the end of turn 5. On to turn 4. And I get my actions back, and it is the top of the turn with first activation. So my artillery is in range of their armor, but not in range of their artillery. So that's a bit spooky. It's going to be a while before my artillery can get to their artillery. I'm going to have to move them up to the plains. That'll also lose my fighting position. But this artillery is going to be quite the nuisance until I can deal with it, because it's going to be doing 3 attacks per turn. So in that case, I think it's a big enough problem to call in the shorties for, because I cannot survive 2 rounds of artillery barrages. So the P-47 shorties coming in hot, doing at least 1 wound to the artillery. There's a wound. Okay. So shorties all used up. Then they go, because that was one of my fast actions. So they're targeting fewest pins. Their only option is my mechanized. So first attack does not penetrate, but does hit. So they inflict a wound, a pin on my mechanized. And then they get 1 more action, which they do penetrate and they do hit. So 1 wound, 1 pin. Okay, put that there. Okay, a few things. That goes away. That goes away. So the artillery has activated. They got their 1 natural action, and then they spent a supply to activate their ability to attack again. So now I need to finish out my first step. I'm going to activate my artillery, gaining a supply and then spending a supply on an attack versus this deploying armor. A 6-4, that 4 gets boosted up into a wound because of my fighting position and attack skill. So I land a wound versus the deploying armor. A wound and a pin. So it's going to roll 1 time to see if it blocks my wound. And it does not. That kills the deploying armor. Thank goodness. Some lucky rolls, and I am back in the running. So they're done. My first step is done. And their first step is done. So there you can see the armor regiment that I've been dealing with. And I'm going to start with my armor first. I'm going to move... I think I need to move my armor up, but that's not going to be super helpful, because I'm going to need to spend a supply and then spend another action to move them up. So I think I'm going to stick with my mechanized attacking.
And right now your armor does get a bonus for being in the plane, which pretty much cancels out its penalties for attacking at range 1.
You're right. And yeah, with that then, I think I'm going to risk it. I'm going to spend a supply. I'm going to spend an action to gain a supply, and then I'm going to do an attack with a really accurate fire that is upgunned. So I'm going to spend 2 XP, and I'm going to be adding 4-1 to this roll. So the scariest thing here is going to be penetration, since Well, yeah, that it will be a problem because I'm subtracting 2 from my penetration, and my base penetration is 2, so I need to roll an 8 plus, but that is impossible since I'm only adding 1 to my penetration roll. So I need to inflict some pins on them first, so I'm going to undo some of that, and because I need to soften him up first before I do my super attack. So I'm just going to spend 2 actions just doing some... Oh, no, scratch all that. Not going to activate my armor. Going to activate my mechanized to try and inflict some of those pins. So a 5-3, not enough. And a 2-2, also not enough. I am looking for a 7 on my D10 roll. Okay, so now their armor activates, targeting my armor. Very spicy stuff. And so luckily they're not targeting my armor because my... Oh, no, they are. They are within range. So the first attack there is a 3-1. That 1 is a miss, but I have 2 pins on my armor, which bring it up to a 5. So I need to spend my one of my action cards. I shake it off in order to stop that wound. And then for their second attack on my armor is a 10-2, which doesn't quite penetrate there since a 2 is so low and they needed a 7. They inflict a pin versus my armor. So that ends their activation. They then... I'm going to have my infantry are going to attack twice. They're actually going to gain a supply, and then I'm going to spend that supply, giving my armor a free armor attack. It costs a supply to activate this action card, but that'll give my armor a third attack here. I guess I'll use my attack action on the armor. Not a lot of good that did, but let's see what my 3 armor actions can do. So, number 1, not quite enough. Number 2, a 6 is enough with my bonus, so that is a pin against this armor. Whew. And then I'm going to try and inflict another pin before next round so I can get him early. A 3-3. That is not quite enough. The pin brings that 3 up to a 5, and I need a 6 to hit. So that is the end of turn 4 on to turn 3. So I really need to spend some action cards here to refill me. So I'm going to spend a supplies. Here, let me get that for you. Okay, here is the supply dump card. I'm going to pay the 2 XP to play it, and then I get 3 supplies sprinkled around. I'm going to give that to my infantry and armor. Probably... Ooh, actually, I can only give it to my infantry because that's who's in the open road. And then I have one more shrug it off for my mechanized. Okay, so he gets one more attack versus the armor regiment. which luckily inflicts 1 additional pin against them. Okay, let's move on to turn 3 here. The first artillery gets to go. So they are attacking my guy with fewest pins, which would be my infantry here, since they only have 1 pin. So it's going to do 2 attacks versus my infantry. A 9-6, that is a 1 wound, 1 pin. And then they're going to attack again. That is another wound and pin. Okay. So now things are looking a little shaky, but I am going to activate my first guys. I think I'm going to try and take out their artillery in a sneaky pushing forward with my artillery. I'm going to discard 2 action cards to get in, and then pay a supply to attack, targeting their artillery. And that is enough with my fighting position. Oh, I just lost my fighting position since I moved. So that 4 only goes up to a 5, just putting a pin on the artillery. Okay, but now that I am up to the plains, I can activate my engineering company and try and get a regen 2. A 4, that puts 1 engineering point on this location. So next turn, if I get a second engineering point, I will regain 2 health, putting some of my units back in the fight. Now I'm going to have my tank. I think it's time for the tank to do the super attack. So first, yeah, I'm gonna have him use the really accurate fire card here. I'm gonna spend that 2 XP and then have him shoot at the armor regiment. So with 2 vulns, oh thank goodness, that 6 gets boost is enough to penetrate. That 4 gets brought up to a 8 because of the pins, and up to a 12 because of the really accurate fire, up to a 14 because of the plane, down to a 12 because I'm shooting from range. All of that said and done is enough for a 10, which does 2 hits, killing the armor regiment. In 1 shot, since all that setup did eventually pay off, gaining me 5 XP. And then I will gain a supply to hopefully move in next turn. Okay. Now that the armor's dealt with and things are looking a lot better, I'm going to remove a pin with my infantry and spend a supply for my artillery battalion to attack their artillery. A 5-5. That kills their artillery, gaining me 3 XP. Okay, so hopefully here at the end of turn 3, top of turn 2, we should be moving in to clear them out. Okay. Here, instead of removing a pin from my infantry, no, I think that actually is best. Okay. End of turn 3, on to turn 2. I'm going to do a discard and draw with my artillery company, since they actually get more cards at this point than my infantry do. So give me a second. Gotta refresh my Vorpal page. Okay, now I'm gonna draw my 3 action cards for my artillery. Okay, that was a pretty good draw. The most important things that I got would be this gain time card right here. But unfortunately, I don't have the supplies to pay it. But also, luckily for me, I got a supply dump to pair with it. So I can pay my 2 XP to gain 3 supplies. In fact, I will pay a 4th XP to gain a 3rd XP to gain the 4th supply. So I'm going to put 3 supplies of my 4 on my artillery, and then I'll give my leftover 1 to the armor. Alright, and I should also get my actions back so I remember. Oh, lovely. Okay, so the gain time, I need to spend 2 of my newly acquired 3 supplies. Then this action I'll use to gain another supply. Okay, so at the end of this turn, I'll put this right here, instead of advancing the timer counter, I won't advance it. So I'll have a full 2 turns at the start of next turn to do the objective. Okay, my infantry is going to gain a supply for itself to get a little more defense. This here armor is going to remove 2 of its pins. And that's the end of the turn. Oh, right. And my engineering company is going to do its most important job, regenning. Come on, nice. That is a 2nd point of engineering, meaning I get to heal 2. I'm going to peel 1 off of the armor and the mechanized, bringing them up to full strength. Now we can move on to the actual turn 2. I discard my gain time ability, and I'm going to activate the objective. Okay, it is free to activate, and I gain 2 supplies. I will give 1 to my artillery and 1 to my armor. And let's draw in those 9 points of hostiles. Interesting. Okay. So I drew the Heavy Armor Brigade, which I believe is one of the highest XP hostiles, if not the highest. A whole 7 XP, showing up and clear them out. The raiding mechanized appears all the way in the highway. So I think I'll focus on targeting the raiding mechanized first, and then I will deal with the heavy armor brigade. The raiding mechanized shouldn't be too bad since he's in artillery range. I'm going to spend 2 supplies on artillery attacks versus the raiding mechanized. That is a pin since I hit with my defeat cover. They spend a supply to try and shake it off. And they do. And then I roll again. That unfortunately does not hit. So that is the end of my artillery's turn. On to their first step. They luckily don't have any firsts. Both of these guys are normal, no firsts, no lasts. Um, I think I'm gonna activate my armor and try and shoot behind me into the raiding mechanized. See what happens. A 4/4. I believe that is a Voln. Removing this.
Before you shoot them,
Yeah.
what I'm noticing is that they only have one action with a range of 0, so they're not going to be actually attacking you this turn. Are
Very
they
good
worth
observation.
shooting, or or maybe advancing towards the heavy armor? I don't know.
Tell you what, I like what you're thinking. Yes, I will hold off on shooting the raiding mechanized because they will just be moving into the plains, which will give me a better chance of shooting them. So I will focus on my mechanized actions and my infantry. I'm gonna push my infantry up. Actually, I think I'm going to start with my artillery battalion. I think that's my best bet. Yeah, the heavy armor is just so daunting of well, like even if I do hit, what will like it won't do much, but I better start plinking away at them. So that is enough to pin it, of course, but the 4 does not overcome its cover of 9. And then it's going to use its defense to try and shake it off. It luckily does not. Okay, so that was my battalion activating, so now they get to activate. I'm going to push the raiding mechanized into the plains. And here's my strategy. I'm going to have my mechanized come in into the plains because they also get a bonus here, and I'm going to try it, and I'm going to see if my mechanized is enough to bring down the raiding mechanized alone. When it activates, I lose 1 supply. Good to know. Boop. Okay, so let's see what my mechanized can do. First attack. That is a pin versus their mechanized. They spend a supply, they try and block. They fail to block and are out of supplies. And for my second attack, that is enough to break their cover because 1 pin brings it up to a 4, plus my base of 1 brings it up to a 5. That 6 hits because of the pin as well. So that is 1 wound on their mechanized. Now their armor goes, and unfortunately, they only have 1 target to shoot at, and that is my infantry. So it's first attack versus my infantry. A 1/3 up to a 5/1. They basically automatically defeat cover against my infantry, and that 5 is a wound, so I'm going to spend 1 supply to try and block it. I fail. And I'm going to use my artillery battalion to block the attack. So that's 1 wound blocked against my infantry. And the heavy armor goes 1 more time. A 6/3. That's another wound. I'm going to pay a supply to try and stop it. And that's a fail. So unfortunately, my infantry battalion does go down, but this is not the end, as the heavy armor still has to make its way and kill the rest of my squad. Okay, but my infantry is done for this mission. Okay, I'm going to activate my armor and take a shot at the raiding mechanized. A 6/1. Yeah, the 2 gets brought up to a 4 and then a 5 because of the location. So that's a wound, killing the mechanized, getting me 2 XP. I'm going to shrug off a pin. Okay. On done with turn 2, on with turn 1. You get your supplies back. And now I need to see if I can take on this heavy armor brigade in one turn. I have a chance. There's some odds of it happening. I got lots of bonuses, but let's see. So starting off with my artillery, I'm going to spend an action to gain a supply and then to shoot. Oops, that stays there. So first attack, that is enough to hit. So another pin. It's going to try and shake it off. It does. So that's my first step. Then I'm going to have my mechanized go. Actually, I think I'm going to swap my order of turns around. For my first units, I can decide whether they go during the first step or during the main activation step. And I'm going to have him go during the main activation step because that will pull the heavy armor from the clear them out into the open roads because they're activating now after my first go. Because I do not want to have to move my mechanize 2 spaces. So one of its actions is spent moving, and its second action is spent shooting at my armor, which they penetrate and do 2 wounds to. Wow. Certainly scary. Okay. Now I'm going to push my mechanized in to try and stop them. Okay, so 4 moves in. It moves in freely. And I'm going to make 2 attacks. First one is a 5-3. That 5 does hit because of the 1 pin on them. It's going to try and shrug off the attack. It does. And then I get to attack again. A 10-6. Wow. That just puts a pin on them, since that 6 isn't enough to penetrate with just 1 pin on them. So now I get a second pin on them. And now, for all the marbles, the 1 armor attack, I am adding basically 3 pins of value. 1 pin because of the plane, and then 2 more pins for what's on the armor. So that 3 gets brought up to a 6 and then down to a 4. But that 10 would have done 2 wounds and then spent a supply to make it 3 wounds. So very close. So let's see what the next round holds, because there is a chance of this still working. Okay. So it is the end of turn 1, on to turn 0. We are in overtime. At the top of the board, there is negative turns. So after this turn, in overtime, I must suffer 1 supply from each unit, like remove 1 supply from them, or place a wound on them. And this is at the start of the turn. So my artillery is going to spend a supply, and my armor is going to spend a supply, and then my mechanized cannot spend supplies, so they take a wound. But now it is back to me, and I'm going to have my artillery take a shot. Oh, and they get their armor back. They get 2 supplies to defend with. Okay, so my first armor attack, a 3-1. With 3 pins. Ooh, no, still not enough. Oh, wait, no, with 3 pins, that is enough. That 1 goes up to a 7. So I do inflict a pin. It tries to shrug off. It succeeds. That's my fast step onto my regular activation. I'm going to have my mechanized shoot away. A 4-3 that is enough to penetrate. The 4 gets up to a... Yeah, the 4 defeat cover gets up to a 5 because of base, and then 6, 7, 8. One away. We're working our way up there. So the second mechanized attack goes. It's going to inflict another pin. The tank is going to try and shrug it off. It does. So now it is out of armor. I'm going to do my final attack for my mechanized, and a 4-7. The 4 still adding 4-2, so not quite enough. So that is 4 pins on the heavy armor brigade, completely out of armor. Another shot versus against the armor, adding 5, 5-2. So that 3 goes up to a 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then because of my baseline cover, I do penetrate this time. And then for my D10, the 3 gets boosted up by 8. Gets boosted up by 10. So I automatically do 2 wounds. And then I pay a supply for 3 wounds. Since this +1 supply ability can be activated at any time, I inflict 2 wounds naturally, and then an additional 3rd wound, killing the armor brigade instantly in overtime, ending the mission, since clear them out only requires the this location and the open roads to be empty at the end of the turn. So that is an end of the mission at the very end of overtime turn 1.
That was an exciting. I was wondering how you were going to pull that off because
Yeah.
I was looking at that heavy armor thinking that's a tough opponent.
Yeah, it is. It was certainly a nail biter, but it does help. Yeah, the heavy armor brigade is a blessing and a curse, since it does mean 7 XP of hostile value all rolled into 1. It could have been like 3 or 4 units of infantry, each with 3 or 4 health each, and then I would have been there forever chewing through the health. But I was able to kill the heavy armor brigade with 1 good shot. But oh my goodness, the pins and setup and preparation to do so, and the amount of wounds taken, it was spooky.
Now, that was a really tough fight. I'm thinking because this mission went so long, let's do a separate video for your post-battle
Yeah,
results.
I agree.
And that way we can take some time with that.
Mhm.
So thank you all for watching this very exciting battle that went right down to the end and even beyond the end a little bit. And we will have another video up for you guys soon.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you then.